As I've said many, many times, tolerance doesn't mean that I agree with you. Tolerance doesn't mean that I have to make up excuses for you when you're wrong. If I tolerate you, it means just that. No more, no less. And I do tolerate people who disagree with me either on matters of principle or matters of tactics, matters of strategy here on YouTube. There have been a lot of games played lately in pursuit of fame, notoriety, money, a lot of drama mongering going on within the vegan scene. And I mean, to some extent, I just tolerate it. And to some extent also, I think, at least in the beginning, people felt that this was a positive thing because the drama and the scandal mongering was supposed to be indirectly and eventually in pursuit of a larger goal. Whether you call that saving the planet or helping the animals or just promoting veganism itself. But the problem is, and why I'm making this video right now, on a practical level, I've got to tell you, the type of backstabbing, the negative aspects of this scandal-mongering behavior, they actually are having a negative impact on my ability to organize real-world activism right now. And they'll be having a negative impact on numerous other people who are not going to make YouTube videos talking about it. They're creating an atmosphere of hostility and distrust that's counterproductive, not long-term, not invisibly, very visibly already short-term, here and now.
Yeah. Loyalty is love, love is loyalty. I watch Beanie Siegel dissing Jay-Z. I watch the game when he diss 50. I watch the locks when they diss Puffy. If I put a nigga on, is that gonna happen to me? If I put a nigga on, is that gonna happen to me? Loyalty is love, love is loyalty. I watch Beanie Siegel dissing Jay-Z. I watch the game when he diss 50. I watch the locks when they diss Puffy. If I put a nigga on, is that gonna happen to me? If I put a nigga on, is that gonna happen to me?
À-bas-le-ciel.
To kick this off and to put a human face on some of the philosophical questions I'm going to raise here, I'm now going to read you an email from a guy named Timothy. Timothy is one of my supporters on Patreon, paying $1 a month. Currently the only income I've got in this world, so if you guys want to sign up and join my Patreon too, could be fun for the both of us. Timothy writes, I.R.L, hello, I've followed you on YouTube for many months and have been part of your Patreon discussion forum for a couple of months too. Your videos on history and politics drew me in, and I had no idea it would spark such an interest in me for ecology and matters of principle. What you said about being uncompromising and not being a nice guy resonated with me especially because that trait has been a frequent source of criticism for me. I've maintained a vegan diet for 2 weeks now. I believe I was chiefly influenced in this direction by you. I never intend to abandon veganism, but in January, I leave for military recruit training. I know at least I'll be required to purchase wool for my dress uniform. I'll do the best I can. Thank you for the content you produce. I hope you keep it up for a long time, that this message gets to you, and that you have a good day. Keep it real. That's the end of the message from Timothy. For me, the prospect of ethics relies on there being some sort of a connection between knowing and feeling. I know that leather harms animals, destroys the environment, and so on, and this changes how I feel about it. Now, I had a conversation with a Chinese woman here a few days ago, last week, and she really had never thought about before what leather is made of or where it comes from. She had never thought that buying leather entails killing animals. And, at first, her reaction, you sort of don't know if the person is joking. And then you realize, no, sincerely, this person is waking up to this fundamental fact of their life for the first time. And they're recognizing that something they've, in the past, only looked at as a finished product, as an item presented to consumers, has this history behind it, has these difficult ethical questions about, how it's produced and what it means about us as people, if we're willing to pay for it. But leather, if you look at it, if you smell it, if you touch it in a store as a finished product, there's nothing disgusting about it. There's nothing revolting about it. But what I know about leather can change how I feel about leather. I can feel revolted to discover, if I try something on in a store and I don't realize it's made of leather and then I check the label. Some of you have had that experience. That happens to me more often than something like wool, where you try something on, you're looking at it, and then you only figure out that it has some hidden non-vegan ingredients. You may really feel revolted. You may feel disgusted putting on leather yourself, or when you meet a friend and your friend is wearing leather, and so on. But what I know changes how I feel, and that shapes my conduct in my daily life in many, many different ways. Now, the question of being a nice guy and not being a nice guy is really very different from the question of being a moral person. And it's also completely separate from this issue of moral sentiments, of how you feel about ethical issues and problems, with the same immediacy that I'm talking about feeling that leather is something bad or revolting, even though it may look appealing. Put it this way, leather as a finished product, it doesn't resemble the corpse of a dead animal in any way whatsoever. Very often, leather looks very similar to plastic as a finished consumer product. Now, this thing with Vegan Cheetah, who is currently, one of our leading celebrity voices on veganism here in the digital vegan demibond. In many ways, Cheetah is a nice guy. You can see that publicly, and I can say that to some extent because I know him. Cheetah is the type of guy who says, in his videos, he looks in the camera and says to you, I hope you're having a great day. I hope you have a great weekend. And he really means it. I think if you talk to him personally offline, he is that kind of guy. He actually hopes you're having a nice day. He actually wishes you to have a nice weekend. In many ways, he is a nice guy. And yet, this video exists, and a lot of controversy exists right now because he is doing real harm. Not just to the prospect of effective activism here within veganism, even proto-activism, even just us communicating with each other, getting organized, and making something happen. Now, the main example I'm concerned about, I proposed, me and Jason Pizzino together started discussing an event that we wanted to organize in Thailand in December. Now, is this activism in the strictest sense? No, but it's the first steps towards having real, meaningful activism emerge from this mess of, discordant and dissonant personalities that are brought together by vegan YouTube. And a lot of people were really excited about the idea. So the idea was, in its final form, was to have an event in Thailand this December, probably going up to and including New Year's Eve, because many of the people involved said that was really when they wanted to go, be after Christmas, in the days leading up to New Year's Eve, and then celebrate New Year's Eve in Thailand. And, it was not going to be based on lectures. It was not going to be based on an academic conference. It was going to give people the opportunity to see some elephants, see some monkeys, possibly visit, a conservation park for endangered turtles. We're going to try to put together a couple of hands-on, meaningful experiences like that. But otherwise, the only events would be to meet other vegans, for the vegan lass to have the chance to meet the vegan cheetah face-to-face for the first time, possibly for the light twins to meet the vegan cheetah face-to-face the first time, and, for me to meet all these people and what have you, and to create long-term friendships, long-term connections of trust and cooperation. Forget friendship. You know what? Friends are one thing, colleagues are another. Really, if we're talking about long-term political activism, it's colleagues that we want and colleagues that we need. It's a really pragmatic form of trust and cooperation that you're trying to set up a basis for long term. And the original concept for this, when we were doing the brainstorming, it was really me and Jason Pizzino who did this brainstorming together. We started, and Cheetah was really an integral part of the idea. And we talked about, Cheetah doesn't travel much. Could we have this event closer to him in his hometown or in Virginia Beach where he has family? We went through this long list of possibilities of possibly organizing this in the United States. And then finally, when for various pragmatic reasons, it really became clear that the place to hold this event would be Thailand. What made sense was to do it in Thailand. I said, okay, I've got to check with Cheetah in terms of the timeline in December. Can he leave the United States at all? Would he attend this event? Now, why is that? Why was it that from my perspective, Cheetah was an important part of this event, to have him be there? It is partly because he's a nice guy. In terms of what people would actually do at that event, meet people, hang out, go to the beach, have fun, go to a kickboxing club. I definitely think that would be part of it. We could finally have the long-awaited fist fight between Vegan Cheetah and the Light Twins. whatever. I said, look, if Jason Pizzino wants to have a fist fight with me, we could do that for charity too. Obviously not seriously, at the boxing arena. There's a limited number of things in terms of just entertainment that people would do, aside from sitting down and talking about vegan politics and getting organized to save the planet and do all those wonderful, important things we talk about on YouTube, but that most of us have no clear plans on how to do. So there are some contexts in which being a nice guy matters, in which it's really an important trait. And I can totally imagine a guy like Cheetah being really thrilled to meet some of his fans face-to-face for the first time, to meet other YouTubers, to come together that way. That same kind of bright, positive attitude that guy has of, I hope you're having a great day, I hope you have a great weekend. I can totally imagine him being a guy who, at an event like that, would really bring a lot of life and joy to it. Now, the last time I was in Thailand, I met with several of my fans, several of my viewers, and several other vegans on YouTube. And we did. We sat down and talked politics. But again, I'm not a nice guy. I think a lot of those people enjoyed meeting me, what have you. But meeting me and talking to me, it's a lot like you can listen to any of my podcasts. I don't bring that kind of bright, happy, fun energy to something. I sit down and want to really talk about politics. I remember, we did this event at a karaoke bar. And there was a funny moment. We were all kind of talking about different things, and everyone there was basically opposed to the permanent vacation. That's why they were interested in meeting me at that event. But remember, there was one point at which I just said to people, it was kind of a momentary pause in the conversation. So, what do you guys think about those elections coming up here in Thailand? And I asked a couple of other political questions, and everyone there, because they watch my channel, you're kind of half smiling, but half silent and half awkward. Everyone kind of had a laugh at themselves, because even though the people at that table, they're critical of this, and they've seen my own videos raising the question of why aren't vegans in Thailand more politically engaged, more politically aware, nobody knew anything about it. Nobody had anything to say about those kinds of political questions within Thailand. So this event we talked about holding this December, the end of December in Thailand, I still think it's a great idea. I still think it could be a very positive thing for everybody involved. And from my perspective, as you guys know, if you've been watching the videos on this channel, I don't have any kind of personal animosity towards Cheetah. We don't have any personal conflict that I know of. He's also stopped talking to me. He's stopped replying to my emails. And from my perspective, the weird thing is, look, Cheetah, I really thought about this event as being for you, for him in many ways, and for people like him. The reason why the whole event was thought of as such a kind of fun vacation for the people involved is that it's not really for me, and it's not for people like me. As I say, I'm not that dude. If I was planning my own vacation in Thailand, I wouldn't go anywhere near the beach. There are a lot of things that are interesting me in Thailand, intellectually, historically. If I was doing an event for me, I'd probably have it at the National Museum in Khon Kaen. Whatever, it'd be. I could have a couple of very erudite people show up and talk about the history of the Dvaravati ruins within Thailand, whatever. In terms of art, archaeology, history, both ancient and modern, 20th century politics, Vietnam War politics. There are so many things in that part in Thailand that are of interest to me, and where I can imagine hosting an event for me and for people like me. But this, again, it's partly I'm aware I'm not a nice guy, and in a lot of ways this was supposed to be a nice event for nice guys. It was trying to just help organize something that people could really enjoy. And again, this isn't even really activism. It's just proto-activism. It's setting the foundation for cooperation in future. But now I'm in the situation where I'm writing to Vegan Cheetah and saying, look, I expected you to come to this event. Ultimately, I've got to invest both time and money if I'm preparing this event, because I'm here in Asia. You can go back and forth between Kunming and Thailand pretty easily. If we're setting the foundation for this, like Cheetah, regardless of all this other noise and acrimony you're creating, are you going to come? Are you committed to coming to this event? Are you committed to promoting this on your channel, just to saying it's a good thing? Because, obviously he's going to come, he's going to film himself, or we're going to film him and, have fun and so on. Just a very short time ago, this was something really positive in your life, Cheetah, that me and other people, especially me and Jason Pizzino, were really putting in work to make happen. And now already that's falling apart. Now already I've got to look at Cheetah and say, okay, well, what's happening? And if Cheetah's short-term strategy is to create invidious hatred between as many people as possible, like the thing with Vegan Mojo. And Shida says, he's remarked on the internet public that he has dirt on, Jason and Henya, that he's got some kind of scandal he's going to try to monger and so on. It's like, well, there's what you do and there's the way that you do it. Okay, well, are we still going to get this kind of positivity from you? Are you still committed to making this particular event happen? Or are you out? Are you canceling your involvement? What does that mean for you? What does that mean for us? What does it mean for anyone who's trying to make this mess of eccentrics into some kind of meaningful movement in the future?
You know this shit crazy, man.
So the philosophical point I wanted to make in this video, it's what'll be interesting to me if I come back and watch this video 10 years from now. Being a nice guy, what Timothy wrote to me about, is very, very different from being someone who's highly motivated to deal with ethics, or it's also just totally unrelated from the feelings, the sentiments that may shape your ethics in life. And I'm someone who's susceptible to both. For me, my engagement with moral and ethical problems, it's not purely rational. It's not just an academic debating club or something. It's part of how I feel, and how I feel really does shape what I do. For me, I'm going to tell this anecdote in a very short manner. But for me in my life, it was an anecdote that really highlighted this, the way I experience ethical questions and ethical things in my life. I sat down once in a cafe with a young woman who had just finished law school. She had just started her career as a lawyer. And she was a Dutch citizen. She was a citizen of the Netherlands. But she was black. And from the very first time she and I met each other, we only met twice. From the very first time we met each other, there was just a tremendous chemistry between us. Tremendous physical attraction. And we did have a very intelligent conversation. She was an intelligent woman as well as one who was beautiful and very attractive to me. But the reality was, the substance of the conversation for both of us was, you start talking, and the question is really, I'm feeling very attracted to you. Are you feeling very attracted to me also? Just both parties are really trying to figure out if the feeling is mutual. And then once you know it is mutual, what are you going to do next? Now, so this woman who had just started her career as a lawyer, she talked to me a lot about humanitarian work. At that time, I was really more involved in than I am now. Now I'm just a student learning Chinese, blah, 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 as most of you guys know. Talking about humanitarian work, some ethical issues in history and politics, about a lot of things that were meaningful and important to me in my life. It was what she was choosing to talk about. And we talked a little bit about her experience in law school and her starting, to be a lawyer. Now, at the end of the conversation, what she said to me directly, and it's the only second time I met up with her, she directly propositioned me. She asked me if I was going to come back to her hotel room with her. And I'll always remember, she invited me to come back to her hotel room with her for about 3 hours. She specified an amount of time. And the attraction was very real. And also, in terms of raw intelligence, my respect for her was very real. But I did not do that. I did not go with her. And the reason for me was very simple. But it's part of this element of how ethics and feeling and so on really connects to the core of my character. Late in the conversation, I then turned to her and asked, because we had just been talking about something about humanitarian work and helping the poor and the downtrodden under, conversation that we covered many different headings. I turned to her and I just said, so, in your legal practice, are you planning to address, some of these issues? Are you engaged with some of the things we'd just been talking about? And I respect her honesty, but what she said to me was no. She had chosen to just go into corporate law, and she was just going to do whatever paid the most money, Now, obviously, that's a paraphrase. She talked about her professional aspirations and why she was doing what she did in her own terms. But that was what it boiled down to. Now, I do not regard that as evil. In a sense, I don't even regard it as bad. I regard it as banal or even just morally neutral. But, when she said that to me, when she explained what her current and future career was, to use a phrase that I got from from a very memorable context in Buddhism, I felt cold in my bones. It really chilled me to the core. And up to that point, I felt so attracted to her and so interested in her and what have you. Probably if she hadn't said that to me, or she had lied, if she had just told me that, yeah, she really cares about helping the poor and downtrodden, she was engaged in some kind of humanitarian work, or had some pretensions or aspirations to make the world a better place of any kind, probably I would have gone to that hotel room with her. And who knows, theoretically, we could still be in contact today. Theoretically, we could be married today. I doubt it. But that really chilled me. In the same sense that I was saying before, something like wool or leather, it doesn't look bad, doesn't feel bad, doesn't smell bad as a finished product, but what you know about it changes how you feel. For me, that was one of the most stark turning points, where just suddenly what I know about someone changes how I feel about them. And as I say, it doesn't make me a nice guy, it doesn't make me a morally good person. Quite the contrary. I really kind of identify openly as someone who cares a great deal about morality and ethics, but I'm willing to reflect on the fact that I don't conform to a lot of the social expectations that are placed on me, neither here in China, nor in Cambodia, nor in Canada. I do not meet the Canadian definition of a nice guy at all, and I'm not interested in trying to. But I think that in that sense, someone like Cheetah and someone like myself were really at opposite extremes. Cheetah, I think he really is a nice guy. He really, when he says to you, I hope you have a great weekend, he really means it. And I'll never say that to you. But on the other hand, both on the level of feeling and the level of rational thought about the future, I really care about ethics. I really, I've been in the position many times of having to quit a job or refuse a job before I was hired. When I was offered a job, refuse a job to start for ethical reasons. And one component of that is just thinking through ethically what's right and what's wrong. But another component of that also is that chill, is the cold in my bones that I felt. The fact that I'm actually turned off by, in this case, literally turned off by a lot of these, to me, immoral things when they're offered to me. A lot of the things Cheetah has been doing to get attention, to me, would be chilling. Apart from the fact that I wouldn't do them rationally, because I'd be concerned about exactly this kind of thing. Like, okay, if you're going to create this invidious and poisonous atmosphere within veganism, where everyone's stabbing each other in the back to get another 5,000 views this week, blah, 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 what happens next? How do we organize real activism? How do we even organize an event like this in Thailand where people can meet each other and cooperate? That's rational. But I also have to say, a lot of the stuff he's been doing, it would be revolting to me. In the same way as leather and wool, it would make me feel cold in my bones, as in this other example. So both on a level of reasoning and on a level of feeling, I could never do the things that this guy has been doing. And I don't know where that leaves us right now. I wish I could tell you. I mean, I've gotten no response from Cheetah. I wish I could tell you that he would write back to me and say that despite all this other noise or all this other drama, he's really committed to making a positive event happen, that he really cares about this kind of organization and activism, or proto-activism of trying to get the ball rolling, and that he really wants to, support that event, and that he even just wants to support his fellow YouTubers, just isn't asking a whole lot. But I don't think I'm going to get that email. And instead, I think it's going to become an open question of, for me and Jason Pizzino, I'd still like to help him out with this, that probably Jason has got to organize a very different kind of event from what we'd first thought about, where it's really based much more on a closed list of people being invited one at a time, where we talk to Vegan Last. Say, Vegan Last, okay, are you committed? Can you arrive on this day? When can you make it? Good. We're going to book the hotel room for you. Where maybe it's going to be a short list. Maybe it's going to be 15 people. Maybe it's going to be 25 people. It's going to be really a much more closed event. And that's what happens. I mean, the type of scandal mongering and backstabbing, just mean-spirited, crude damage that's being done within veganism right now, it results in something that could be open and happy and positive and inviting in strangers, instead becomes closed. It's too bad. I still think we've got a lot of potential. I still think we've got a lot of talented people who are trying to make something positive happen, short-term and long-term. And the ultimate tragedy of this is that short-term thinking tends to resemble evil. If you're only thinking short term about your next video, about your next 5,000 viewers, about your next 5,000 subscribers, that's going to prevent you from even thinking as long term as this December, let's organize an event in Thailand, let's meet each other. And it's definitely going to prevent you from thinking about, in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, who can I cooperate with? Who can be my colleague? Who can really contribute in a meaningful way to this whole saving the planet thing that on some level all of us are committed to?